Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football. My name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Madmouth. Glad to be joined by Ryan Skolrud and Alex Fleming. Alex, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. My apologies, I was late. Work calls.
Don't worry about it. It's all good, Alex. Just like the three-man booth tonight. All right, Ryan, as we say in baseball, lead it off.
All right. Well, we've got a bunch of injury news, a bunch of stuff going on. A lot of the news that I didn't necessarily put into my notes had to actually do with tonight's game that's going as we do this broadcast. And a lot of that was, George Kittle has officially been put on injury reserve. Jimmy Garoppolo has been put on injury reserve. And then dealing with what they're going through with the 49ers on top of all that and all the injuries that they have had over this season so far, both on offense and defense. You then have the left tackle Trent Williams and wide receivers Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel considered high-risk close contacts to Kendrick Bourne. Even though it was a false positive, they still all missed tonight's game because you have to have so many negative tests in a row before you can, before you can officially be allowed back. So rough for the 49ers. So especially considering, even as a Seahawks fan, I would rather they win tonight than Green Bay, just to knock down Green Bay one more game behind Seattle in the lead for the NFC East, or for the NFC number one seed. So
Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, Richard Sherman, also out. And that's not counting Solomon Thomas and Nick Bosa that was lost during week 1 or 2 of the season.
Week two was the what we called on our episode was our injury episode that week. We called it the infirmary ward because basically half the NFL decided to get injured that week. So
week 2
that was nasty.
Yeah, week 2 was bad.
And so getting into a lot of else and kind of, I guess, staying on the COVID theme, Matthew Stafford is officially on the COVID list. I haven't seen if it was actually a positive or if it was possibly a false positive, but he is, I think it might have been another false positive. However, he can still play on Sunday, but he has to test negative every day up until then. So therefore, he won't be practicing at all this week, but could still possibly play on Sunday. So,
are you starting Matt Stafford if he can play?
I don't know. I kind of avoided Matt Stafford across the board this season. Looking at here, let me actually pull up the matchup.
Minnesota.
Yeah, and I know, and I'm back and forth. I think I would like Stafford more if Golladay was going to be healthy.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not. It's a good matchup overall. Minnesota, in terms of just giving up fantasy points this year, they've been pretty good against quarterbacks and against. Whoops, wrong one. Let me change that.
Didn't the Lions work out Mohamed Sanu this week, Ryan?
I don't know if they actually signed him. I know they brought him in.
Right, that's what I mean. They worked him out, brought him in.
They worked him out. I don't know if a contract's actually going to happen though. Minnesota right now, they give up the 6th most amount of points to quarterbacks, the 2nd most to wide receivers. So I mean, they've been weak in that spot. I don't know how much I trust Marvin Jones and Hall to really go nuts this week for Matthew Stafford. So I'm if he plays without having practice all this week, I may still have him at very, very low end quarterback 1, more likely high quarterback 2. In my opinion, that's where I would have him, even though it is a favorable matchup. So, Christian McCaffrey is back practicing in full, and so it looks like he is finally going to be back playing this next week. A lot of questions that I've been getting about Christian McCaffrey, about the Carolina Panthers is, now what do we do with Mike Davis? Especially considering that he has struggled the last couple weeks. And my main bit of advice for everyone is, for right now, don't necessarily drop Mike Davis. Again, because of the fact, I understand that he's had 2 stinker weeks in a row. I get that. I think part of that is they used him as much as they were using as much as Christian McCaffrey was getting used. And Mike Davis has never had that kind of workload really in his career. And so for me, I think that if he gets a little bit of a break with having Christian McCaffrey back and doesn't have that massive workload that he was getting, basically Christian McCaffrey's workload, it's possible that Mike Davis could still be fantasy relevant if something were to happen to Christian McCaffrey's ankle again. We've seen great players come off of these types of injuries and just not look the same the rest of the season. So I'm telling people, don't necessarily drop him unless you have better options to pick up. But for right now, I mean, obviously Mike Davis is not going to be as very fantasy relevant as long as Christian McCaffrey is healthy. So I'm saying wait a couple weeks, see how much Christian McCaffrey does, and then kind of make a decision from there. Alex, you got something?
Oh yes. I hope everyone listening knows that it's not going to be Teddy Bridgewater this Sunday. It will be the XFL's own P.J. Walker, who will be the starting quarterback for the Carolina Panthers against the Kansas City Chiefs this Sunday. And I would hold on to Mike Davis for the simple fact that A, Christian McCaffrey is coming back off an injury. B, Mike Davis filled that role perfectly. And C, I do believe Matt Rule is going to implement not one but both runners in different sets. Matt could be excellent on goal line or short yardage, and Christian McCaffrey in between the 20s. I think Mike Davis has a lot of fantasy value left, especially with the second-string quarterback playing this week.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of it, a lot of people are looking at his lack of production over the last couple weeks, and I think again, for me, that more had to do with he was given Christian McCaffrey's workload, and he's never had that kind of, as far as I can remember, he's never had that much of a workload. I think if he's more quote unquote limited, and not having as much of a workload, I think that he is going to be much more productive with the carries that he has or with the touches that he has. And I still think that he has a little bit of like I said, a little bit of fantasy value even with Christian McCaffrey back. But for those people that need help and they need to go somewhere else and find something else on the waiver wire, I don't know what's going to be available. But if you feel like you need to do that, go ahead. But I've been advising people to hold on to Mike Davis at least a couple weeks just to kind of see. Moving on, Myles Gaskin has gone to the injured reserve. We already knew he was probably going to miss a couple weeks. Now he's going to definitely miss at least 3. We still have, I believe, Breida is still dealing with the hamstring injury. And so, God, what does that leave them with? That leaves them with Jordan Howard, DeAndre Washington. Yeah, that's right. They just traded. They just got the trade there. So, I'm not necessarily all that confident right now in the run game for Miami. It all depends. I mean, I understand they went up against a better defense this last week in quote unquote better defense this last week in the Rams. I mean, the Rams were able to shut down the pass game for the most part. Tua wasn't asked to throw the ball a whole bunch because he didn't need to, because the Miami defense basically took over that game. And so I don't know if I've seen enough tape on Tua to have much of an idea of what's going to happen in this offense, fantasy-wise for Miami. So
one thing I do know about Miami, since I wrote about Miami in my current article, yay! Miami is very dependent on the running game because the running game actually opens up room for Tua to breathe. You never want to give a rookie quarterback an inability to run the football because then people are going to be pressuring him. You remember the first play against the Rams when Tua was under center. He took some heat from Aaron Donald, fumbled the football. But that defense came through and had 4 turnovers in the first half. That's just disgusting. Eric Rowe had one. Kyle Van Noy had one. And when you have a punt return for touchdown from Jakeem Grant, a 1-yard touchdown throw to Mr. Parker, a short distance run, thanks to Kyle Van Noy, from Myles Gaskin, and just an excellent all-around game because someone got busted in the mouth and Andrew Van Ginkel picks up the ball and returns it to make it 21-7, they're playing as a complete team. Here's the problem. They're not in Miami. They're not at home. They're not going to get home calls. They won't be able to run the football effectively because I doubt anyone with under 3 or 4 days under a new script is going to be able to run the ball effectively. Do you trust Jordan Howard? His longest run this year has been 6 yards. That's a no for me. Oh, and they're going to be in the toaster where Kyler Murray is faster than anybody else on their defense. Nook is a problem, even if you have Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. And Larry Fitzgerald might actually get his first touchdown. Did I say that? Larry Fitzgerald might get his first touchdown this season.
Now, didn't Tua get under 100 yards in this last game? Was it like 90-some yards?
90 yards.
Yeah, for what was it, for the first time in 54 games, I think it was like the first time since 2006, a team lost when they outgained their opponent by more than 300 yards. Wow. The Rams had 460 or 460 yards total in this game, and Miami had 147. I think is right around there.
Right.
So, Rams had 463 yards. The Miami Dolphins had 145 offensive yards, but had four
turnovers.
Key turnovers in the first half.
What was Tua's passing yards?
90.
It was
90 yards and 1 touchdown pass.
That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, in other words, the Dolphins' defense carried them in this football game.
Oh, they were worth 27 points for fantasy. Absolutely.
Well, for whatever it's worth, okay, I covered a game last weekend, Florida Atlantic against the University of Texas San Antonio, and the Owls, by the way, the FAU Owls, beat UTSA, and the defense carried us over UT. We ended up winning our defense picked up the slack, and even Willie Taggart admitted after the game that our offense has a little catching up to do. And what was so interesting about that football game, as Texas San Antonio had played 7 games, we had only played, I think it was like 2. So that's for another day. But when you talk about differences in games being played, you can imagine why the offense takes a little while to catch up. But, so obviously Tua coming out a little green there, and yes, the defense carried the Dolphins. Continue on. Just thought I'd throw that nugget at you guys.
All right. Michael Thomas should be back for Sunday Night Football. I want to say that he, Drew Brees, and one other player, it may have been Emmanuel Sanders, were limited in practice yesterday. I think they may have gotten into full practice today. I don't know that for sure, though. Don't quote me on it. But with this, how the Saints have been very, very cautious with this injury to Michael Thomas. I would think with how they're feeling about where they're at right now, I understand this is going to be a tough game. We're talking about a division game against a Buccaneers defense that is one of the best in the league and has done a very good job of shutting teams down. Just in terms of fantasy points, Tampa Bay is the 3rd best against quarterbacks. They're in the top 10 against running backs, top 10 against wide receivers. And so this is a Buccaneers defense that has done a very good job overall shutting down offenses. And so I think it's good for Breeze to have Michael Thomas back and for his production. I wouldn't necessarily say that it takes a ton away from Alvin Kamara in terms of his production, just because of his explosiveness. Even with a few less touches, he may still be putting up big games. So I think Michael Thomas coming back. Every time a player comes off an injury where they've been off for more than 3 weeks, I'm always hesitant, even when it's a star player, I'm always hesitant to put them too high in my rankings and just automatically throw them right back where they were. And so I think that Michael Thomas, from what I've seen and from what, some of the reports I've read, it looks like he is probably most likely back to as close to 100% as you can get. I am still hesitant to necessarily put him in my top 5. I may put him like 12 to 15 for right now until I can find out more news later on this week, kind of in the next couple days to make sure. But with Michael Thomas back, unless you have 2 absolute studs wide receivers, you're most likely going to be starting him anyways. So go ahead, Alex.
I have Michael Thomas as number 9. Number 9. Stephon Diggs against that Seattle secondary. That's a must start. That's just obvious. Chase Claypool against the Dallas Cowboys secondary. Ugh. I think he's a must start. Terry McLaurin against the Giants, even without a quarterback. I think he's borderline a must start. Guys, DeAndre Hopkins against Miami. You're starting him. I don't think there's much debate there. And then once you get through all of the effects, Mike Evans, I believe, is a must start because of Antonio Brown. There's a lot of implications in this Saints-Bucks matchup. There's been a lot of chatter in a lot of chat rooms, whether it be the NFC South invasion, NFC South fans. There's a lot of chatter. The Saints and the Bucks have been going at it since week 1. The Falcons don't matter. They're completely irrelevant. By the way, start Julio, Denver. He's also in the top 10 for starts. But Michael Thomas is about 95% back to normal. He's 1 week behind schedule. Emmanuel Sanders and Marcus Callaway all were limited in practice today. But if you're going to tell me that Michael Thomas is going to be on the field, how in the hell do you not start him?
Again,
Guys,
I have him at wide receiver 12. So I mean, it's not like I'm downgrading him. It's not like I'm downgrading him to, I still have him as a low end wide receiver 1. It's just I'm not going to just automatically put him as a top 5 guy coming off a a multi-week injury. So that was more my thing. Is I still think he's a low end wide receiver 1. You're going. I mean, unless you have 3 guys, 2 or 3 guys that are, that you managed to trade for or managed to draft really well and have 3 automatic starters every week and just happen to have Michael Thomas who went injured. Unless you have that, you are still going. You're going to start Michael Thomas. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here's a better question: are we starting Antonio Brown this week? Because I am.
I'm pulling up the stats here. New Orleans, because of how much they give up to the wide receivers, and because again Chris Godwin's out, I would have him as a flex. I see him as a solid flex play right now. Looking at, I don't even know if I have him where I have him right now in my rankings. I kind of did I've got him at like 31, so I have him as a wide receiver 3 right now, as a low to mid wide receiver 3. So. That, I mean, look, as I dig into the stats a little bit more this weekend, going into Sunday, it's likely that I may move that up, but the matchup is at least very favorable for him. And I can see Tom Brady just targeting him like crazy, like he did last year when Antonio Brown came to the Patriots for that one game against Miami. So.
All right, so Antonio Brown signed a veteran minimum of $750,000 with a lot of incentives. Touchdowns is part of the incentives. Yards is part of the incentives. Whether they make it to the Super Bowl is incentives. And receptions is incentives. Up to $2.5 million. He's living in Tom Brady's house. You know what this tells me? This man's back is against the wall. and he needs to ball. Chris Godwin has a broken hand, so he will be absent for this matchup, making Antonio Brown the number 2 receiver in this game. If you know about the Saints and Bucks history, Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans have a personal beef going on. They trade back and forth. Either Lattimore shuts him down completely, like he did last year whenever they were playing in the Superdome, or Mike Evans toasts him like some very, very bad burnt butter bread toast. Here's the issue. Lattimore, Jenkins, Janoris, and Malcolm are going to have their hands full in 3 wide receiver sets where Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and whether it be Scotty Miller or Tyler Johnson are lined up. They don't have a linebacker that can match up with Gronkowski. That's the reason why they signed Quan Alexander from San Francisco to help out that New Orleans defense. We have the running game. I say we because I also cover Tampa. We have the running game to confuse a lot of defenses between Leonard Fournette, Shady McCoy, Ronald Jones, and if he could ever get his ass on the field, Keyshawn Vaughn. There's a lot of backs that can implement different plays in this offense. Here's my point. If you stick Lattimore on Evans, Brown is going to eat you up. If you put Lattimore on Brown, you have to play 50-50 ball with Evans all night. I look for this to be a high-scoring affair.
Yeah.
And we'll do predictions in a little while, but that's good that you incorporated that information there, Alex. Thank you.
All right. I don't even know why I even put this in here, but Ben DiNucci has been benched, and it looks like it's going to be a competition between Gilbert and Rush to compete for the starting quarterback spot for Dallas. Really what this means is downgrade the entire Dallas offense. It's just, I mean, and forget about, I mean, even if you take out just that, they're going up against the Pittsburgh defense. It's just been brutal to teams.
Yeah, but how much more can you downgrade an offense than anything anyways? I
mean, this week, one of my staff members was he is actually number 2 right now on Fantasy Pros in terms of running back ranking accuracy. And the last 3 weeks he's had Zeke at about running back 20. Last week I had him at running back 15. That's about where I have him this week. I may even downgrade him more. CeeDee Lamb, we have practically taken out of our top 40. We don't know what to do with Michael Gallup. Well, we didn't know what to do with Michael Gallup because somehow DiNucci looked one way, and it was to his right every single play. And so it mattered who was on his right every single play. So it was normally Dalton Schultz and Gallup. And so we'll see what happens with Rush and Gilbert, but I'm avoiding the wide receivers. I'm still avoiding. Huh?
I'm not scared of Zeke.
No. I have a deep league where I have to because it's an 18-team league and everything is thin everywhere, so I don't have much of a choice. But if I could start someone over Zeke, I would.
I've been seeing a lot of questions online whether to start Philip Lindsay or Ezekiel Elliott. And ironically and sadly, this was an easy answer for me.
That's an easy pick.
Over Ezekiel Elliott. If you need to know why, here's why. Pittsburgh defense gave up 265 yards rushing to the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore's been leading the league in rushing since last year. They won that game, by the way. The Dallas Cowboys don't have a healthy starting offensive lineman that started this season, other than Zach Martin, who might be back for this game. Ezekiel Elliott has regressed. He had 63 yards against the Philadelphia Eagles last week. What's the best way to stop the Dallas Cowboys offense? Stop the run. I'm not touching Zeke this week. Philip Lindsay, however, gets to play the Atlanta Falcons. That sounds tasty. It's not like the Falcons don't give up yards.
So you got
rushing.
So you got the Falcons and the Denver Broncos. Let me tell you guys a little something here, okay? Super Bowl 33, the first Super Bowl that I attended in Miami. That's what I think of that matchup. But far from the Super Bowl. John Elway's final game. Oh, what could be drawn up any better than that? Talking to Elway, okay, at his MVP press conference, couldn't get any better than that. Especially when I popped the question out to him. What was it like, John, to go ahead and did you think about how it would work out after Robert Irsay traded you over to Denver? And he gave me that old wide Elway smile, like, oh, free at last. Free at last. What can I tell you?
We'll be done talking about Elway now.
I would go out there and cover 3 more Super Bowls after that. But how can I not go ahead and incorporate free at last here with John Elway? My goodness, life is beautiful watching you two guys at it while I slip a word in here and there. Good stuff.
All right. My phone went off. All right. So then, speaking of Philip Lindsay, that was the next thing in my notes. Philip Lindsay is back at practice. He was a little bit limited. He's been dealing with it after having, what was it, like a turf toe injury. I want to say he like jammed his toes or something, or his toes got stepped on or something. So he took Wednesday off. He was back at practice today. So it looks like he should be fine for this weekend. And like you said, Alex, this should be a great matchup for him and for Melvin Gordon. Now, the way that the splits have basically been working out, Melvin Gordon basically has become the receiving back, and Lindsay has been more of the first and second down back. This is a personal curiosity for me, but I've always wondered why, I've never seen what I would consider a deficiency in Philip Lindsay's catching. And maybe it's his third down blocking. Maybe that's what it is. But I've never understood why he hasn't been used more in the passing game over the last couple of years. That being said, he's done great, especially this last week. Had a really great game, running the ball well, showing explosiveness. I love Philip Lindsay for this next week. Again, still digging into the numbers on how I think he could split between him and Melvin Gordon, but yeah, he is definitely a moving into that must play for me.
Since he's come back off an injury, Philip Lindsay's been the back you want. Melvin Gordon has been holding down the show, but when Philip Lindsay arrived on the scene, he was like, if you don't want it, I'll take it. Philip Lindsay's the back you want in Denver.
Yeah, and really that's kind of what we were hearing kind of at the beginning of the season, was that there started to be some rumblings and some kind of rumors and reports coming out that the Broncos were kind of disappointed and not as thrilled with Melvin Gordon as they thought they were going to be when they first signed him, and that Philip Lindsay was the better back in practice. I haven't understood why they haven't just made Philip Lindsay their main running back. Now I understand he's gotten nicked up. We've had the broken arm or wrist or whatever it was. Dealing with the toe issue for a couple weeks this season. So, I understand he's a little bit smaller, but anytime that he is healthy, I can't help but put him at a running back 2, at minimum, a mid-range running back 2, because he is that good.
I find it funny that they gave Melvin Gordon this big contract to leave the Chargers and come to Denver, and they had their primetime running back in Philip Lindsay the whole time.
Yeah.
Now, he showed sporadic moments of being a bit thuggish, throwing blows, breaking his hand, but he's a local kid. He's from that Denver, Colorado area. He went to the University of Colorado. He was a Buffalo.
When undrafted, he had to actually almost beg the Broncos to sign him.
There's something about local guys who play for their local teams. James Conner, Pittsburgh. We all know his story with cancer. He's local, and he gives you everything he has when he plays locally. Lindsey, you saw him last year. He broke out like game busters. And now this year, he's the back you want. Whenever you get a kid who's playing locally for his home, they give it a little bit extra mustard.
Well, it's funny how you mentioned that. I don't know if you guys remember the name, but Joik Bell, remember him?
Yep.
Played for Wayne State University, played for the Detroit Lions. And the Lions had themselves a good little back there. If anybody knows anything about Wayne State, I believe it's a Division II school out of Wayne County, Michigan. And Joik Bell was did a pretty good job for the Lions. He really did. So
Yes.
Yeah, so Joik Bell, that kind of adds a little bit of what you guys are saying, Alex and Ryan, that, those local kids that are hungry that nobody pays anything attention to. Hello. It's called that David Copperfield thing, abracadabra, alakazam, these kind of guys like do appear every now and then.
Well, I've got one more for you. Another one kind of like that was, while he never was like the big breakout, he was a great role player, was Jermaine Kearse for the Seahawks, especially in their Super Bowl years, where he was basically the wide receiver number 2 behind Baldwin. He went to the University of Washington, went undrafted, and got signed by the Seahawks. I want to say it was either in 2012, 2013, and he was a staple of he was one of those guys that just wasn't great. He in his college years, he led, I think he was the all-time leader in the University of Washington for the most drops in his career. Got laser eye surgery after he graduated from the University of Washington, and really, other than one game, never really suffered from drops the rest of his career, and was a solid wide receiver too for the Seahawks for after that. So
great examples, guys. Really enjoy that. Yeah, Joik Bell. I think about him. Wayne State University, a school that nobody's heard anything about. And I'll tell you, I guess one of the things that's really interesting, and covering the Conference USA, where you have a lot of these smaller schools in there, there's a lot of hidden gems all over the place, and you never know when they're going to occupy roster spots 45 to 53 on that spot, and that just validates everything that we've talked about. All right, continue on.
The last one I have on here is Chris Carson. So Chris Carson, the news that I've seen is he did not practice today. He is not even going to test his foot out until Friday. So they're not even testing it until Friday. They're basically giving him complete rest until then. And so we are still waiting as to whether or not he will even play. It is likely that we are looking at a backfield again of DJ Dallas and Travis Homer going into Buffalo this Sunday. Now,
DJ Dallas. Got to talk to DJ Dallas at the NFL Combine. He didn't get a lot of press way because you had the Jonathan Taylors and the J.K. Dobbins and the Keyshawn Vaughns and the Zach Mosses. So whenever I spoke to him, he was just hungry for an opportunity. Little-known name guy, didn't get the big recognition, landed in the right spot. Sometimes if you land in the right spot, opportunity will present itself. Have we even spoke about Rashad Penny? Nope, and we haven't all season. Chris Carson's been hurt not once, not twice, but 3 times this season. DJ Dallas is looking to take over that backfield, and he did excellent last week, not only running the football, but receiving the football. Shout out to Mookie Hawkins, who got to interview Pete Carroll just the other day and got to ask Pete Carroll about DJ Dallas and how he implements inside of the Seattle Seahawks offense that helps out Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me throw one note in here that I picked up. I want to get your opinion on there. Then you continue on, Ryan. Sorry about that.
Nope, not a problem.
The New England Patriots signed wide receiver journeyman Dante Moncrief to the practice squad. When things get desperate, you go to Dante Moncrief. Do you guys think that he'll ever see the field for that depleted receiving core for New England?
I think he'll see the field. I don't know how productive he'll be, but he'll at least see the field.
What about you?
I like Isaiah Ford a little bit more than Dante Moncrief. He's been on too many teams in too short of a span.
Yeah, too many teams in too short of a span, and even when he has played, he hasn't been able to stay healthy.
Okay. When you're desperate like New England, you go anywhere you can to find help. Obviously,
honestly,
was on the scrap heap, so you might as well give him a shot. Any more or less than Des Bryant being with the Ravens, you never know when these guys will come in handy if they ever wind up on the field. But
I mean, right now, I think the due to all the injuries, I think the wide receiver that I like the best right now in New England is Jacoby Myers.
Okay.
And so again, I'd have to look at the injury reports, who's playing, who's not for this next week. But
I'm not disagreeing, but my favorite wide receiver right now would be Damiere Byrd.
And I can see that he was very productive and got a lot of targets early in the year. I don't know why the targets have fallen off. Maybe that's just partially because of I think that there's been a lack of consistency in that offense. But I think if they can get a little consistency, yeah, I agree with you that Byrd is going to be another one of those guys that is going to surprise a little bit.
Hey, Ryan, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Are the Patriots on upset alert?
Let me
the Jets. The Jets, Jets.
I don't know. Again, this is another one of those ones where I just don't know where to go with it. Looking at just what the Patriots have done on defense. It's not what we are normally used to. They're great against quarterbacks. I mean, the New England Patriots, in terms of fantasy points, so that's where they're the number 2 team in terms of the second best team in terms of giving up fantasy points to quarterbacks, and the third best against tight ends. But boy, do they give up a lot in the run game. They give up the 9th most in terms of half-point PPR. They give up the 9th most fantasy points to running backs. And they're really middle of the road against wide receivers. So in terms of the running game for the Jets, I think that P. Ryan could be in for a decent game. Upset alert, I don't know. Again, it kind of depends on, has Belichick given them enough of a butt whooping to try to get things turned around with Cam Newton in the offense, to get the defense to actually, again, we're talking about a defense that had 8 opt-outs, I believe, or maybe it was just 5 on the defense and 8 total for the Patriots.
11 total, 8 on the defense.
11 total, 8 on. Okay, so I was right, 8 on the defense. So a couple of those guys were some of their stud defensive linemen, and so that's part of the reason why they're struggling in the run in terms of defending the run. I think it's possible. This is why I don't bet on games. I don't bet on point spreads. I bet on individual production in playing fantasy.
Smart man.
And so it's possible. I think it could happen. When it comes down to 2 bad teams like this, I'll go with the head coach and Bill Belichick over Adam Gase.
All right. With that said, let's go ahead and transition over to some football games. I got 8 of them that I want to talk about. No point spreads, no nothing. Just give me flat out winners. One of which is underway right now. The Green Bay Packers 5-2 against the 49ers 4-4. I don't know about. It looks like Alan Alda's walking in the door with the MASH unit that the San Francisco 49ers have gone ahead and put together. Well, you got the Packers and the 49ers. I don't have a score, so I'm probably blind on this one. But go ahead. I'll defer to the experts, and then we have 7 more to roll.
Well, it's 14-3 right now. So let's just so that for the Green Bay.
Okay. That's easy. I'll say Green Bay.
and the tight end the tight end for Green Bay that has a touchdown is not Robert Tonyan.
It's Mercedes Lewis.
That's all right. Candy Ebling is in the back watching it, so she's in heaven watching that game.
Obviously, I'm picking. I would. Again, I've talked about this as a Seahawks fan. Usually you want the team in your division to lose. I actually would be okay with how beat up the 49ers are for them to win this game and knock Green Bay, 1 game farther behind Seattle for the possible 1 seed in the NFC. That being said, Green Bay's going to win this game. So,
hands down.
San Francisco doesn't have anything to combat them. So
let's see if I run out of fingers. Jimmy Garoppolo, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Kendrick Bourne, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, Richard Sherman, Jeff Wilson, Tevin Coleman, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Good enough for me. Next football game, okay. Oh, and we'll keep it home, Ryan. The Seattle Seahawks 6-1 against the Buffalo Bills 6-2. Pretty good matchup. It only happens once in Buffalo every 8 years.
I mean, obviously, I like Seattle for this one. Their defense is starting to come together. They get Jamal Adams back this week, which will help with the pass rush. Plus, was it the guy that they got from Cincinnati? I don't know why his name's leaving me right now. Carlos Dunlap. So they've added to the pass rush, which is really for me is the thing that's cost their defense so much is the lack of a pass rush. They have decent cover guys, but their cover guys can only do so much for 10 seconds if the quarterback gets that much time to throw. So I think that with adding a little bit to this pass rush this game, with how motivated Wagner has been these last couple weeks and how well he's been playing, not only in coverage but rushing the passer, I'm going with Seattle on this one.
Who got Diggs? Seattle's secondary is ranked 32nd for a reason. I love Russell Wilson. I love the offense of Seattle. I'm going to say this as respectfully as I possibly can, Mr. Skolrud. That defense is trash. One thing that Buffalo can do is pass the football. And Josh Allen's pretty damn accurate. Diggs is in a tie with DK Metcalf when it comes to the most receiving yards. I think Diggs has a field day against that Seattle secondary, with or without Jamal Adams. And due to the fact that it's in Buffalo, let me give you one more funny stat. West Coast teams don't do well on East Coast time. Even Miami played Seattle tough earlier this year. Upset special. I got Buffalo.
True. One thing to counter that, Seattle over their last 12 at least over their last 9 games going to the East Coast and playing in 10 a.m. games are 9-0.
Well, you know what? I'm going to get smart here, and I'm not going to even decide either way. I'm going to let you guys start picking them from now on, and I'll defer because I have all this information. So what do I need, a coin toss to determine what I'm going to say? Nah. I'm going to, from now on, I'm leaving the picking to you guys, and I'll just be the narrator. I'm taking the 5th in all my picks from now on. All right. The Baltimore Ravens and the Indianapolis Colts, because you guys are encyclopedias of information. So go ahead. Who wants to go with this next one?
Alex, go ahead.
All right. El Freaky didn't play that well, had 4 turnovers against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a top 3 defense. Guess what he's facing? A top 3 defense. Now, the secondary can get got, but you can't really run on them. What's Baltimore's specialty? Running the football. Here's what I see being the key note. Is it going to be J.K. Dobbins or is it going to be Gus Edwards? Because somewhere on a milk carton, Mark Ingram is going to be found sooner or later. I believe that the Indianapolis Colts defense is going to force Lamar Jackson to throw. Because with DeForest Buckner and them boys up front, they're not going to let him have much of a rushing attack. Lamar Jackson's going to have to throw, and I think he's going to surprise some people. Now, Indianapolis is coming off of a bye, but I don't trust Phillip Rivers. Do you trust Phillip Rivers? Hail to the no. I got Baltimore, but not pretty.
Are you saying that Indianapolis is coming off the bye because they ended up beating the Detroit Lions? Is that what you're saying?
You said it for me.
Thank you. Okay. Enough said. Go ahead, Ryan.
I mean, yeah, I think that Baltimore has the better. I mean, both of them are decent defenses. I think that Baltimore has the overall better offense, and so for that, I think that Baltimore is more likely to overcome and win this game. Even though believe they're playing in Indianapolis on this one.
They are. Your soil.
So yeah, I think that I'm going with Baltimore. I don't understand. Indianapolis in terms of fantasy points, number 1 against the quarterback, number 3 against the running back, number 1 against tight ends. So that's going to make. I mean, I think that they're going to have to pass the ball, but I think they were better off if they start passing the ball to Marquise Brown, figuring out a way to get him involved, his explosiveness involved in the offense. I think that Mark Andrews could be in for another tough week this week because he has a tendency to disappear against very tough matchups. But I do think that if they will get the pass game going to the wide receivers and get the wide receivers involved. I think that Snead could be in for a decent game as well. And that, I think, is what's going to be the difference and put Baltimore ahead.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Carolina Panthers, Kansas City Chiefs. All right, so Alex, you said P.J. Walker is going to be under center for the Panthers. Is that correct?
Breaking news, it will not be Teddy Bridgewater. It will be P.J. Walker. XFL's Houston Roughnecks own P.J. Walker. He is going to get his shot.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, there you heard it here. All right, so with that said, okay, I don't think it's going to matter because I think Patrick Mahomes is going to run. The Chiefs are going to have an easy time against the Panthers, but why not give another quarterback a look 8 games into the season? What do you got to lose right now? Except a football game, but get more game film. And there's no question the Panthers are going to lose the game. So, yeah, give another guy a shot. What do you got to lose?
I mean, I think for me, I'm picking the Chiefs. I mean, I know that the Carolina Panthers, again, have been pretty good against quarterbacks, pretty good against wide receivers. They really struggle against running backs. So, I mean, for me, I think that, again, I still think that that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a very good running back. He's as of 2 weeks ago, I want to say he was in the top 3 in terms of yards after contact. And plus they have Le'Veon Bell, which I still don't know how all that's going to work out between CEH and Bell. I think it's still going to take a couple weeks for us to figure out how that's going to work out in the backfield. But overall, I think that Kansas City has more weapons. I believe they've got Watkins back. You've got McCole Hardman. I mean, you've got so many weapons for this Kansas City offense. I do think that the Chiefs come out on top on this one.
We're all in agreement that the Chiefs are going to win this game, but if anybody thinks this is going to be a gimme game, wrong. Dead wrong. P.J. Walker is finally getting an opportunity in the NFL. Last time I checked, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel is a pretty decent wide receiver core, and Kansas City doesn't have that amount of corners. Oh, and like you mentioned, Kansas City has a problem against running backs. Christian McCaffrey is back. Mike Davis hasn't gone anywhere. Look for this game to be competitive. We all have KC. This is not a gimme game.
Okay, fair enough. Chicago Bears take on the Tennessee Titans. Once again, the Bears they'll only play in the Music City once every 8 years. So you had the Bears and the Titans. Seems like a pretty interesting football game. Could be a very physical football game.
I'll go. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead on this one.
All right. So people are sleeping on Chicago because they lost 2 in a row. Last time I checked, Tennessee's lost 2 in a row because they just lost to a 1-5-1 Cincinnati Bengals squad. You know how Cincinnati got it done? Running the football. Hey, Chicago, Matt Nagy. Hey, you got this guy named David Montgomery. He's out of Iowa State. Did you know that out of his 1,300 yards his senior year, 960 yards was after initial contact? Run the damn ball. Oh, and they also cut Mr. Binkley and Joseph and Beasley. So that leaky defense is going to be leaky a little bit more, especially if you get Jimmy Graham involved. People aren't giving Chicago respect. And whenever you don't give Chicagoans respect, they take it. I got Chicago.
All right.
For me, you've got the Bears. I don't know. This is one of those ones where I think is a coin flip because you have a very good offense in the Titans against a very good defense in the Bears. I like David Montgomery, and I'm with you, Alex, on David Montgomery. My problem it has never been David Montgomery's talent. It's been his usage. And whether or not they'll actually use David Montgomery. It hasn't helped that they have had a few issues on the offensive line over the last couple of years, which it looks like they're starting to figure those out and get those taken care of. I believe that Cody Whitehair is just tested positive for COVID, so he may not be playing this weekend. So we'll see how that affects the offensive line. For me, I think I'm probably going Titans, and not trying to disrespect the Bears. I think this is going to be one of those. It's going to come down to a field goal either way. So, although if it comes down to a field goal, do we really trust Steven Gostkowski right now?
So I have a question for both of you guys, okay? I'm really curious. I've heard about this during the week. Do you think at some point or another that Mitch Trubisky goes back under center if Nick Foles, I've heard, because I think they lack Trubisky's mobility, but then, of course, Matt Nagy would be going against what he's supposed to be going with. But let's face reality, it's not like Nick Foles is the most mobile guy on the planet either, or Trubisky is.
I believe Mitchell Trubisky has a shoulder injury. How he got it only having one play against the Saints, I do not know.
Well, he got rocked on that one play. He got rocked on that one play, so.
But the one element that Mitchell Trubisky has over Nick Foles is the fact that he can run the football.
Correct.
If Mitchell Trubisky was playing against the Saints, Bears win that game because there were plenty of opportunities for Nick Foles to just run and get the first down. But no, he's Nick Foles. He doesn't do that. Oh, and by the way, one last thing. Derrick Henry likes to run roughshod inside his division. Jacksonville, Houston, hell, every now and then against Indianapolis. The Chicago Bears are all about that smoke. Don't expect Derrick Henry to have over 100 yards. I guarantee it. Another reason why I'm going with the Bears.
Okay, well, let's go on to the next football game. We got 3 to go. Miami Dolphins against the Arizona Cardinals. I like the toaster analogy. That was good. And I did have a chance to go ahead and visit the toaster when I actually did a tour of it a couple of years ago. Haven't seen a game there. One of these days I'll get out there. But the tour that the toaster was a nice place, by the way. They had an RV show going on. So I walked the whole premises, checked out. It was worth the paid tour that we ended up spending to go to the toaster. And by the way, for whatever it's worth, okay, I think in Las Vegas they have a similar thing where they bring the turf in and out of the building as well. And where did they copy it from? The toaster. Okay, so Alex, you'll be defined on this broadcast as the toaster. Okay, at least for all intents and purposes. Thank you, Alex, the toaster. Continue on.
I'll take this one. Obviously, I mean, I've got the Cardinals on this one. I think the Dolphins can play tough defense, but they're going up against Kyler Murray, not a statue of Jared Goff. They are going against. They're going up against Nuke Hopkins, not not Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Which those two wide receivers did well, but you also had, I believe Cooper Kupp had 20 targets in that game because they were forced to pass. The Cardinals, I think, can get an actual run game going with Chase Edmonds, which the Rams weren't necessarily able to do last week. They were they were forced to throw the ball all the time. I think the Cardinals are a solid enough offense that they should somewhat easily, in my opinion, come out on top in this game.
Isn't Kenyon Drake still on the Cardinals? Is he?
Yeah, he's injured.
Yeah, I thought so. That's what I heard. Okay.
I actually like Chase Edmonds better than Kenyon Drake.
Same.
Offense moved a little bit smoother under Chase Edmonds. I'm starting Chase Edmonds, as a matter of fact, because I had to put Antonio Brown in my flex. Guys, it's in the toaster, number one. Kyler Murray is just a touch more mobile than Jared Goff, number two. I'm glad you brought up Cooper Kupp and his target percentage, because how many targets do you think DeAndre Hopkins is going to get? Huh? Leading to my fact that I think Larry Fitzgerald is going to get his first touchdown of the season this week, because they're going to be paying so much attention to Nook, because he's going to be roasting whatever corner is on him. They're going to forget all about Fitz. Too many weapons for the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray is going to make that defense look silly. Arizona, all the way.
Yeah, if the Dolphins are going to win, they better get more than 90 yards from Tua. Otherwise, they're in trouble. I had to get my deep reference in, by the way. I think the Cardinals, the Miami Dolphins. I'll tell you what, though, it's interesting.
This will be the second time, by the way, that Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray meet.
Yep.
They met earlier in college. It's time for Kyler to get some revenge.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt he will on Sunday. And, I always send Ryan, the transcripts. So I might actually start tagging you, Alex, on some of the transcripts that I get as well. So I'll give you some more juice. How's that going forward? All right, on Twitter. All right, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring up a game, and I guarantee you one thing, Terry Bradshaw and Roger Staubach aren't walking through that building. This is a matchup where these teams have met, I think, 3 times in the Super Bowl. And I remember probably before you were born, that the Cowboys lost 21-17, 35-31 to the Steelers. Ever heard of Frank O'Harris, Terry Bradshaw and company? Roger Staubach, you get to drill Chuck Noll, Tom Landry. Boy, we're really going back in time, aren't we? Almost seems like primitive ages. But anyway, so Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboys. What do I need to tell you the records, except for the fact that Pittsburgh's 7-0, Dallas is 2-6, and I have a feeling Dallas is going to be 2-7. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out. Go ahead, guys, take it away.
You want this one, Ryan?
Steelers. All I have to say is Rush or Gilbert. The Steelers are gonna should just mow over the Cowboys in this game. It really shouldn't be a contest at all after, say, the coin toss.
So let me ask you a question. We're going to treat this like Abbott Costello. Who's on first? What's on second? Who's whatever? Okay, well, I guess we'll define that with the quarterback. Go ahead, Alex.
I'm starting Chase Claypool. I'm starting James Conner. Hell, I might even start Ben Roethlisberger.
Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, Dallas is. How can I say this nicely?
Say nicely.
Ryan, have you ever seen the movie The Crying Game?
Not sure. Probably not.
Okay. Let me fill you in. The climax happens once he finds out the truth, and it's a little bit too late. It's kind of like when he find out that, there's a Captain Winky, you've already been beat. Your pride's already been hurt. Dallas has no pride. They can't stand McCarthy. Nolan is not a good defensive coordinator. He should have never got that job. They should have kept Rashard, but that's a different story for a different day. Cooper, Rush, Gilbert, really? Claypool's going to go crazy. There won't be any Deontay Johnson. Juju might get a touchdown. Keep your eyes on Eric Ebron. If you have a Pittsburgh Steeler, start them.
Real quick on the Ebron point. Let me pull up my rankings. I actually think I have Ebron as a top 6. Now, I have him as tight end 6 this week. He is a must start for me.
Former Detroit Lion. I got to tell you an interesting story about the Lions and the Pittsburgh Steelers connection. I remember Charlie Batch was drafted by the Detroit Lions from Bobby Ross, ended up doing pretty well in Pittsburgh. Well, Eric Ebron, former Lions top 10 pick, landing in Pittsburgh, so a little bit of a Allegheny, Wayne County connection there. Take it for whatever it's worth. I like to provide the historical part of the broadcast, since you guys do an incredible job modernizing this show. So, I got to tell you, on the Sports Exchange earlier, we were talking college football, and I mentioned Oklahoma against Kansas. Okay, I figured that why would I even bother to mention a game like that between two basketball schools? I said, well, we'll just say Oklahoma will beat Kansas 51-3. Well, mind you, okay, there should be a mercy rule in this football game as well. And if you guys can figure that out, then I'll definitely make sure you got Genius Cap sent. Let me just give me your address, and I'll make sure that we have it. So this will be a mercy rule.
Here's a better bet. Does Dallas score 2 touchdowns? 2.
No.
Now, they'll get 1. Garbage time, they'll get 1. Do they get 2?
Nope. I don't think so.
I don't know. We'll have to go ahead and bring that up next week, and we'll find out. Alex, that's your homework for next week. Find out if Alex gets 2, whether they get 2 touchdowns.
I don't think Dallas gets 2 touchdowns.
Okay. A little food for thought, a little something to think about for next week. So we'll add a little intrigue. After all, they do that with soap operas. We might as well do that with fantasy football, right? Go figure. All right, and as Vanessa Williams would go ahead and say, save the best for last. Is what I know about singing, we'll save the best game for last. So we'd like to think we are anyhow. New Orleans Saints 5-2 against the Tampa Bay Bucks 6-2. Antonio Brown. I'll tell you what, the Buccaneers are looking good. They keep adding weapons. I have a feeling that Brady gets revenge over New Orleans. But I wouldn't mind to say anything. I'll let my experts talk about it. That's what I think.
Go ahead, Alex.
I got a lot to say. Go.
Really, I think that overall, I think that the Buccaneers win this game. I think these are both very good offenses. But the Buccaneers defense is better than the Saints defense. And so for me, I think that, you've already brought up a lot of these points, Alex. I think that the Buccaneers take this one, especially considering Brady has never been swept in a season series by a division rival ever in his career. Of course, he's played in the AFC East his entire career up to this point. But playing at home in Tampa, wanting to get back for the loss that they suffered, early in the season. I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the more well-rounded team with a little more explosiveness right now. I think that they're the ones that take this game over the Saints.
Tampa Bay needs a number 1 seed so that way they can be the first team to ever host and play in the Super Bowl. The first game of the season, they didn't have a preseason. They were working out. Yeah, they were practicing with each other, but it's a little bit different when you're playing a team versus just game speed. Cam Jordan was saying a lot of nonsense, saying that they're the second best team in the South, and we look forward to beating them in the playoffs. Sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is. Tampa Bay has beaten Green Bay and Vegas Raiders. Why does that matter? Both teams have beaten the New Orleans Saints. Take away the Chicago Bears, the New Orleans Saints hasn't beat a team over 500. They added Antonio Brown for a reason. The last 3 times Antonio Brown has faced the New Orleans Saints, he's been a Saint killer. Mike Evans and Lattimore have personal beef. I've already explained this. Is Lattimore going to go on Brown, or is he going to take his chances with Evans? Because Mike Evans has been getting double-teamed all season. Who got Gronk? Is that why you signed Quan Alexander? Who we're going to run over, by the way, because the last time he played against the Tampa Bay Bucks, being the San Francisco 49er, he was ejected for headhunting Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston on the New Orleans Saints, going to the opposite team and taking a cheap contract deal so that way he could take over for Drew Brees, who's allegedly the GOAT because he leads in yardage and receptions, passes converted. Tom Brady's got 6 rings. Brees only has 1. But other than the touchdown record where they're flopping back and forth, Brees has the rest of the records. If you don't think that this game is personal, don't tune in to Sunday Night Football. I am giving you a handwritten ass whipping. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will beat the Saints.
Boy, I tell you, I got 2 studs on this broadcast. I do a lot of these shows during the week, and I really feel like I get the night off of watching you 2 guys. You guys are thoroughbreds. You guys are really good thoroughbreds. So with that said, Alex, okay, and Ryan, I am curious. You brought up an interesting point, Alex. Do you actually think that Jameis Winston will be the heir apparent to Drew Brees? Ryan, why don't you comment first, and Alex, you can comment next. I'm really curious about that. Thanks for bringing that up, Alex.
I think it's possible. when it comes to backup quarterbacks taking over, I stopped trying to guess that years ago, because every time you think you've got the heir apparent moving up, the last time I remember a real heir apparent moving in and taking over was Aaron Rodgers after Brett Favre. Because we thought that Jimmy Garoppolo was the heir apparent to Tom Brady, and they ended up getting rid of him. And I may be, I may just not be remembering some, but I think it's possible. I would have to see, how well did that laser eye surgery work for Jameis Winston, so that he's throwing to the right colored jerseys. I think it's possible. I think that he could be very explosive in that offense. I think that offense could be very explosive with someone who has the arm of Jameis Winston. Again, I'm very non-committal on these kind of things. I'll say it's possible. I think he could be. I could see them going a different direction, but I think he could be.
Go ahead, Alex.
Taysom Hill has less than 1,000 yards passing his entire career. That's why he's a Swiss Army knife. Running back, tight end, quarterback, he's not the answer. Jameis Winston is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' all-time leading passer, and he was only there for 5 years. He amassed 19,372 yards while missing 4 games on suspension and missing 3 games due to injury. That's not by accident. He was throwing to the wrong jerseys. Ironically, he had similar numbers to Peyton Manning, yet somehow, some way, he doesn't correlate to Peyton. I don't know why. With laser eye surgery, he's been nothing but therapeutic in practice and in the offseason and during training camp. When Noodle Arm Breeze gets hurt or injured or actually makes it to the Super Bowl and retires, look for Jameis Winston to take over. I am serious as a heart attack.
Well, don't get the heart attack, but remain serious, and I'll agree with you. Fair enough? Okay. And with that said, Taysom Hill reminds me of a former Miami Dolphin many years ago named Jim Jensen. Okay. Here's a guy that made the team on special teams and turned out to be an emergency quarterback, had a pretty good career. So we don't need you to have a heart attack, Alex, because you're now part of the 3-man booth here and a really good addition to the 3-man booth there. But for a guy like me who likes to make a prediction now and then when I don't put thou foot in thou mouth, okay, this is one where I'm going to say that Jameis Winston will be the next quarterback of the New Orleans Saints when Drew Brees decides he no longer want to do it and he decides to go into the broadcast booth. I agree with you. So with that said, guys, what a great broadcast. I think this is so entertaining. If people don't have their notepads here and take any notes, shame, 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 as Gomer Pyle would say. But I love bringing on the historical parts of certain games while you guys are able to bring everything in context. And that's what I really enjoy doing here, just taking a complimentary role with you guys. You guys are thoroughbreds. That's all I've got to say. With that said, okay, Alex, you're going to go ahead. Give me what you got.
Am I seeing you this Sunday in Jacksonville versus the Houston Texans?
No, I won't. I won't be up there this weekend. I probably won't get up there, hopefully, until December, because I have a lot going on. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. Over the next couple of weeks, I've got of course, I have the FAU game against Western Kentucky, and then I'll be up in Sebring next weekend, and then I'm probably going back home for a couple of weeks with my mother being terminally ill and for Thanksgiving. My goal is hopefully to get back up to Jacksonville sometime in December. That's my plan, but looking forward to doing it. But hope I could. It's just a lot to do, especially under COVID-19. But I'm looking forward to seeing you. We're going to have a blast when I see you the next time, as if we don't already. But, yeah, with all due respect, though, this is really a lot of fun watching you two guys. You guys are great at what you do. And to me, this is just a lot of fun. I'd feel like a spectator with a front row seat with the two of you guys. So if any of you guys are watching and listening to this broadcast, as Gomer Pyle would say, shame, shame, shame. If you don't have a pen and paper to listen to this broadcast, we make sure you guys are loaded. But I'll be in Sebring next week, and, of course, I have FAU against Western Kentucky down in Boca Raton. So,
I will make sure to give you a shout-out when I'm in Jacksonville. I'll write an editorial piece before the game starts, and when I ask a question, I'll ask in reference to Scott Morgangraf.
Oh, that'll be fine. And don't worry, they know me very well up there, that's for sure. Then again, don't they all? But I've been around the league forever in a lot of different ways. But with that said, okay, if you only knew, I've only been to 4 Super Bowls, one of which happened to be in Jacksonville when the Philadelphia Eagles lost to the New England Patriots up in that very stadium. And the other 2 Super Bowls that I can mention while I'm bringing it up is I saw Drew Brees defeat Peyton Manning in Miami, and the other one I was at was in Tampa when the Steelers ended up beating the Cardinals. So if I pick 4 Super Bowls, those are pretty good ones to go to. So, but with all due respect, all right, so with that said, Alex, why don't you go ahead and lead off, let everybody know how they can go ahead. Go hold you, then Ryan will do it, and then I'll wrap her up.
Florida Sun Review, Central Florida's oldest black living newspaper. I write sports. I don't do politics. Thank God politics is over. Twitter, Alex Fleming, ALXFLMNG. Alex Fleming, no vowels. Take it how you want to. On Facebook, you could go to my page, Fantasy and Flavors, and we do this show called The Carousel. It's an original. I talk to fans from across the country, if not the globe, about how they feel about their NFL teams. Oh, and if you can't catch me on the Florida Sun Review, Fantasy and Flavors, Facebook, or Twitter, you can catch me with these 2 thoroughbreds, Ryan Skolrud and Mr. Morgenroth, in the Skolrud and Morgenroth podcast. I'm a boring guy.
Yeah, no way. If you're boring, then Santa Claus is Jewish, so go figure that one out. All right, Ryan, take over.
You can.
Well, I get you guys off with that one. It works every time. Of course, it won't be any good next week now that you've heard it once, but go ahead, Ryan.
All right, you can get a hold of me. You can find us at SkullKingSports.com. You can find my fantasy advice not only on SkullKingSports.com. Every once in a while, they have me do little snippets for FantasyPros.com as well, doing sleeper and bust picks every once in a while on there. You can find us on Facebook. Just look up Skull King Sports, and you will find all of our pages and groups on there. You can also find us on Twitter at Skull King Sports, Instagram Skull King Sports, and I believe, or you can also follow me on Twitter individually at Ryan Skolrud. I believe that's it.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess I'm next. All right. Well, with that said, on Twitter, you can find us at Tribune South. That's the @ Tribune South. Facebook and Instagram, South Florida Tribune Gets It Done. YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune. I'll give you 6 reasons why you should subscribe to it. We have Sports Exchange, No Limits, 108 Stitches Baseball Talk, Real and the Rare, Fantasy Football, and, of course, South Florida Tribune Podcast. So that's 6 good reasons why you should subscribe. And it's no charge, so you can't tell me you can't afford it because all it takes you is about 1/10 of a second to do exactly that. All right. With that said, our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Have the Motor City Monitor, where we have information from the Motor City. We also have our affiliates columns, where the media distribution partners, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, like the Miami Dolphins, like the Detroit Lions, like the Florida Atlantic University Owls, etc., send us stuff. We have columnists that write for us. And we also have regular national news as well as national sports, weather, and so forth. So it's a very, very complete, well-rounded website, which, by the way, Candy Ebling, my beautiful wife, has put the whole thing together because I'm not smart enough to do it anyway, so go figure. And most of all the broadcasts are on there as well. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can find us on myself, Scott Morgenroth, on LinkedIn. If you want to hear the audio version of the broadcast, Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. If I talk too fast, no problem. I'll give you an audio replay. Okay? Apple Podcast, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. So meanwhile, if I didn't say it fast enough, I'll try to say it faster, and I'll have an opportunity to see some fast cars when I go up to Sebring International Raceway next week. But meanwhile, you guys are absolutely phenomenal, and I enjoy this. This is an awful lot of fun, but we want to make sure that first and foremost, everybody's entertained. And all right, Ryan Skolrud, why don't you let everybody go out there? Why don't you give the COVID message? And Alex, whatever he misses, you get to fill in the blanks.
All right, just make sure that you're being smart. If you don't need to go out, don't go out. Do what you can. Wash your hands. Wear your mask. Even if you don't agree with the masks, wear the mask to at least be nice to everyone else. Just show a little. Let's try to show a little kindness to each other. Again, wash your hands. That should just be automatic. It should be. And if you don't agree with the masks, wear the mask to at least be nice to everyone else. Just show a little. Let's try to show a little kindness to each other. Again, wash your hands. That should just be automatic. It should be. And again, if you don't need to go out, don't go out. Do your best, take care of yourselves, and take care of those around you.
Anything you want to add, Alex?
I want to say thank you to the American public for voting in record numbers. And I'm going to quote John Lennon. All we are saying is give peace a chance. There's protests going across the country. Not everybody's going to like the outcome. It's the same as 4 years ago. Not everybody likes the outcome. But you know what makes you and me the same? We can reach across the aisle and be friends with people who are different than us. Wash your damn hands. Make sure you stay clean and think about somebody else besides yourself.
Well, you know what? I can't top that. So you know what? On behalf of Alex Fleming and Ryan Skolrud, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fantasy Football. And we look forward to catching up with you next week. So meanwhile, have yourself a great weekend. We'll see if how we sound next week. I'm sure that these guys will always have our weekly report card. Meanwhile, on behalf of two great co-hosts, this is Scott Morganroth of Motor City Man-Mouth. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to doing it better next week. Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend.